The Cemetery of Forgotten Books is a prime character, again, in both books. Where did this idea for the Cemetery of Forgotten Books come from?
Well, the Cemetery of Forgotten Books is the heart of these four stories. All of them intersect at that point. And it was the initial concept from where all these stories came from. And I remember I started thinking about this place years ago, even before I started working on Shadow of the Wind. And I got this idea, this image of this fantastic library, this kind of secret library hidden in a palace in the old city of Barcelona. I started thinking about it, visualizing it, and at some point I realized that besides being a cool vision, it was some kind of visual metaphor. And I started wondering, what does this mean to me? And I realized that it didn't just mean something about forgotten books, but it meant something about also about identity, forgotten identities, and about the destruction of memory. I started thinking about this notion that I think one of the characters mentions in Shadow of the Wind at some point, that we are what we remember, and the less we remember, the less we are. And thinking about this thing, I started wondering, I think that there's a story behind this place. And this is where I started to design some characters, some stories, and to explore the possibilities that lay in there. And so everything came from the Cemetery of Forgotten Books, and eventually everything will go back to that place.
So you know the structure of the books that are coming in your mind? You have a basic outline?
Yes, I have a basic outline, although each one of these books are complex, and each one of them has its own personality. So one of the things I like to do is to take my time with each one of them. At first I thought that I could write all of them in some kind of monster novel, like 4,000-page novel, but I said that would be crazy.
It's hard to sell too.
Yeah, and it would be it would be bigger than a Volkswagen,
right.
and it would ruin completely the structure and the tone and the personality of 4 different books that you could explore at your leisure. So that was the idea. So far I'm in the middle of their journey, and I hope someday to be able to close it up.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other, one of my favorite characters in both books is the city of Barcelona itself. When you decided to write about Barcelona, did you create a character around it? I mean, did you think about it in those kind of terms?
Yes, it was very much my intention from the beginning. I was born in Barcelona, raised there, and lived there for most of my life. And one of the things I wanted to do is to use my own city as a character rather than just a backdrop. And I started wondering about how different authors, different writers had done that with places. And I remember thinking I was especially fascinated by the treatment that Dickens did to create the notions we have of Victorian London, probably the notions we have about that time, that period, the plays, rather than coming from history or fact, come from the images he created with words. And I was very intrigued about that, and I decided that I wanted to use Barcelona as an organic character and do with characters what you do with them, which you put costumes in them and makeup and give them lines and give them direction so they perform. Yeah. So you take what is already there, what is the physicality of the place, the history, the architecture, but then you do a huge stylization. And I felt that these 4 stories were going to be kind of gothic in nature. They had this mysterious, this kind of Dickensian thing, this Baroque thing about the images, and very visually rich. And I thought that I wanted to explore Barcelona from that point of view and try to get it richer and richer as these books were advancing. So I think that for the readers who know Shadow of the Wind, what they will find is that in this case, in the Angel's Game, the same dream world of this Gothic Barcelona becomes bigger and deeper and with more layers and with many more things. And I think that is an interesting place to explore places and cities as characters, because in many ways they are a reflection of who we are. We build them and we live there and die there for centuries. So I think it's very interesting to listen to the stories that the stones will tell you and try to reinterpret them.
Yeah, it's always misty and wet when I read this.
Yeah, it is, and then people are scared. Should I bring my umbrella? And say, well, people have this idea of Barcelona as a more sunshiny, touristy place, and that's part of its nature. But I think that can also be a misconception. I think that the history of the city is much more complex, and I think what is interesting is try to go beyond that purely touristic facade. That it's something of the recent few years, and try to get to the bone and to the soul of the city, which I feel it's much darker and much more interesting than just a collection of nice cafes and touristic establishments.